50 years ago, an old man in a garage in Nagoya taught me something I've never forgotten. He said the mechanic doesn't decide how long a car lives, the driver does. He can build you the finest engine in the world, and you can ruin it in a year. Or you can take an ordinary Toyota, an ordinary Honda, and drive it in a way that keeps it running long after your neighbors have traded theirs in twice. In Japan, we don't think about a car the way it's often thought about here. A car isn't something you use up and throw away. It's something you look after, and it looks after you back. And most of that looking after doesn't happen in the garage. It happens every single time you turn the key, in habits so small you'd never notice them. Your dealership will never teach you these. I understand why. A car that lasts 300,000 miles is a car that stops sitting in their service bay. But you didn't come here for their version, you came for mine. So today, I'll give you 10 of these habits. 10 things that cost you nothing, that take no tools, and that quietly double the life of the car sitting in your driveway right now. Some of them will go against what you were taught 40 years ago. Stay with me anyway. By the end, you'll see they all come from one simple idea. But before I show you the first one, I should tell you where all of this comes from. None of it came from me being clever. It came from 40 years under the hood in Japan and an old master who made me do a job over and over until it was right. So I wrote it all down, the whole method, into one manual over at kenjiokata.com. That's the long version if you ever want it in one place. That's all I'll say about it. Now, let's get to the first one. Number 1, come to a full stop before you shift between reverse and drive. Watch a driver in a parking lot sometime. He's backing out, and while the car is still rolling backward, he pulls the lever down into drive to go forward. The car lurches and off he goes. He does this a dozen times a day and never thinks about it. Inside that transmission, something violent just happened. The car was moving one direction, and you asked the gears to send it the other. All that motion has to go somewhere. It goes into the bands, the clutches, and a small piece of metal called the parking pawl, all of them absorbing a shock they were never meant to take. Do it once, nothing breaks. Do it every day for years, and you're slowly grinding down a transmission that costs more to replace than the car is worth. I've opened up gearboxes worn out this exact way, from drivers who had no idea they were doing anything wrong. The fix costs you half a second. Come to a complete stop. Feel the car settle, then shift. Reverse to drive, drive to reverse. Always let it rest at 0 in between. Your transmission is the most expensive part you'll never see, and this one small pause protects it more than any fluid you can buy. Number 2, warm the car up by driving it, not by letting it sit and idle. Now this one, I know, goes against everything you were told. Start it up on a cold morning, let it idle 5-10 minutes, warm it up nice before you drive. Your father did it, his father did it, and on the cars they drove, it made some sense. Your car is not that car. When the engine is cold, the oil is thick, like honey from the refrigerator. It needs to warm up and thin out so it can reach every part that needs it. And here's the thing your father didn't know. An idling engine warms up slowly. A gently driven engine warms up much faster because it's actually working. So all that idling isn't protecting the engine. It's keeping it cold and thick longer than it needs to be, while raw fuel washes down the cylinder walls and wastes your gas. The Japanese way is simple. Start it. Give it 30 seconds, maybe a minute in real cold, just to get the oil moving. Then drive off, gently. No hard acceleration, no high revs, until the temperature needle comes off the cold mark. You're warming it the right way, the way it warms fastest, and you're saving fuel while you do it. Number 3, never let your fuel tank drop below a quarter. This one surprises people because it has nothing to do with running out of gas. It has to do with a part most drivers don't know exists. Your fuel pump lives inside the tank, sitting down in the fuel itself. And that fuel does more than feed the engine. It surrounds the pump, keeps it cool, and helps it run smoothly. As long as the pump is covered in gasoline, it lives a long and easy life. Now picture a driver who always runs it down to the last fumes before filling up. That pump spends its life half exposed, running hotter than it should. And down at the very bottom of the tank, over the years, a little sediment collects, a little water. Run the tank low often enough, and you start pulling that junk up into the pump and the filter. In an older car, and I know many of you drive older cars, this matters even more because that tank has had decades to collect what's sitting in the bottom of it. So make it a habit. When the needle reaches a quarter, you fill up. Keep the pump swimming, keep it cool, and it'll outlast the rest of the car. Number 4, on a long downhill, let the engine slow you down. Anyone who's driven a real mountain road in Japan learns this fast, because the roads leave you no choice. You come down a long grade, and if you ride the brake pedal the whole way, holding it, by the bottom, that pedal goes soft under your foot. The brakes have overheated. That's called brake fade, and it's a frightening thing to feel. There's an older, better way. Before the descent, move the shifter down a gear. Even an automatic will let you do this, usually marked with lower numbers or an L. Now the engine itself holds the car back. You'll hear it rev a little higher, and that sound is the engine doing the work your brakes were about to do alone. Your brake pads stay cool. They last far longer. And on a long grade, they're actually there when you need them, instead of cooked. Let the engine take the strain on the hills. That's what all that compression is for. Your pads and your peace of mind will thank you. Number 5, keep your foot off the brake pedal unless you're actually braking. I see this constantly. A driver rolling along with his left foot resting ever so lightly on the brake pedal, or his right foot hovering, touching it just enough. He doesn't feel the car slowing, but the brakes feel it. That light, constant pressure keeps the pads dragging against the rotors mile after mile. They wear down long before their time. They run warm when they should be cool. And the driver behind you sees your brake lights glowing for no reason, and he never knows when you're truly stopping. The habit here is to give the pedal nothing until you mean it. When you're not braking, your foot rests flat on the floor or off to the side, well clear. When you brake with purpose, then you come off it completely. Full off or full on, nothing in between. Your pads will last thousands of miles longer for it. And if you're finding this useful so far, do an old mechanic a small favor and subscribe. I put out these habits every week, and I'd like you to have the next one. Now back to it. Number 6, straighten your wheels before you park and never sit holding them at full lock. Here's a small one that saves an expensive part. When you turn the steering wheel all the way, as far as it will go, and then hold it there, you're pushing your power steering to its absolute limit. The pressure spikes, the fluid heats up, and if you sit there holding it at the end of a tight turn, waiting, you're straining the pump the whole time. You hear it sometimes, that groan when the wheel's cranked all the way over. That groan is the system telling you it's under stress. So turn as far as you need, but don't sit parked against the stop. Ease it back a hair the moment you can. And when you finish parking, straighten the wheels out before you shut off. Leaving them cranked hard over leaves a standing strain on the steering, the tie rods, the whole front end, sitting there for hours. Wheels straight, pressure released, everything rests easy. It's the kind of thing a careful driver does without thinking, and the careful driver is the one whose steering never needs touching. Number 7, set the parking brake every single time you park. Yes, even on flat ground. Most people here only touch the parking brake on a steep hill, if ever. In Japan, we set it always. And there are 2 good reasons, both of which save you money. The first, when you put an automatic in park, a small piece of metal called the parking pawl drops in to hold the car. It's about the size of your thumb. If you park on any slope and don't set the brake, the entire weight of the car rests on that little pawl. Over the years, that wears it, and a worn pawl means a car that rolls or a jammed shifter you can't get out of park. Set the parking brake first, then shift to park, and the brake holds the weight, not the pawl. The second reason is the brake itself. A parking brake you never use is a parking brake that seizes. The cables rust in place from sitting still. Then one day you need it on a hill and it doesn't hold. Using it every day keeps those cables moving free and working. So make it part of shutting the car off. Brake first, then park every time. One habit, two expensive problems avoided. Number 8, once in a while, take the long way home. This one isn't about how you drive, it's about how far. And it matters most for the very drivers watching this, because I know many of you use the car for short trips. Down to the shop, to church, to a friend's house across town. 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. The trouble is, on a short trip, the engine never gets fully hot. And an engine that never gets hot has a quiet problem. Every time it runs, a little water forms inside from combustion. Normal, harmless, as long as it burns off. But it only burns off when the engine reaches full temperature and stays there a while. On short trips, it never does, so the water stays. It mixes into your oil, and over months and years, it turns to sludge, the thick gunk that chokes an engine to death from the inside. The cure is pleasant. Once a week or so, take the car out for a proper drive. 20, 30 minutes, out on the highway if you can, long enough for everything to get good and hot. That heat cooks off the moisture and keeps the insides clean. Think of it as letting the car stretch its legs. It's good for the engine, and honestly, it's good for the driver too. Number 9, drive as if someone who gets car sick is sitting beside you. This is the one my old master cared about most, and it's the simplest to picture. Imagine your grandchild is in the passenger seat, the kind who feels ill with every jolt. How would you drive? You'd ease onto the gas, not stab it. You'd see the red light coming and let the car roll down to it instead of racing up and slamming the brake. You'd flow. That smoothness isn't just good manners, it's mechanical kindness. Every hard stab of the throttle, every late hard braking, every sharp jerk sends a shock through the drivetrain, the brakes, the tires, the mounts that hold it all together. Do it all day and the car ages fast. Drive smooth and all of that wear spreads out thin and gentle, almost to nothing. The old man had a word for it that doesn't translate cleanly. The closest I can give you is sympathy. Driving with sympathy for the machine. Anticipate, look far up the road, make every input soft. A driver who does this can take the same car, the same engine, the same brakes as his neighbor and get twice the life out of every part. Nothing costs less and nothing helps more. Number 10, before you switch it off, let it breathe for a moment. We started with how you begin a drive, gently. We finish with how you end one. When you've been driving hard or fast on the highway for a good while, the engine is running hot inside, hotter than the gauge shows in the places that matter. If you pull in and shut it off that very second, all that heat has nowhere to go. It soaks into the oil sitting still in the hottest spots. So give it a moment. When you arrive after a hard run, let the engine idle for 30 seconds or so before you kill it. That short idle lets the oil and coolant keep moving, carrying the heat away, letting everything settle down easy. For most of you, this is a small kindness. But if your car has a turbo, and more of them do now, this isn't optional. That turbo spins on a cushion of oil, glowing hot after a hard drive. Shut off too soon, and the oil bakes onto the bearing and slowly destroys it. Let it idle down first, every time. A gentle start and a gentle stop. That's how the whole thing is done. Now look back at all 10, and you'll see they were never really 10 separate rules. They're one idea wearing 10 different coats. The full stop before you shift, the gentle warm-up, the engine braking, the smooth throttle. Every one of them is the same thing. It's treating the machine with care at the exact moments it's under the most strain. The starting, the stopping, the shifting, the turning, the transitions. That's where cars die young, and that's where a careful driver saves them. That old man in Nagoya was right. The mechanic doesn't decide how long your car lives. You do, 100 small times a day, with your hands and your feet. Start today, and the car in your driveway may well outlast every one your neighbors buy to replace theirs. If you want to know which Japanese models are actually worth keeping alive this long and which ones to walk away from, I made a whole video on exactly that. It's on the screen now. I'll see you there.